This video is brought to you by Skillshare. Stick around to hear more about the special offer they're providing to the entire Upper Echelon community. Okay, this is a follow-up video after the most recent coverage of what can still be described as a novel APT-level malware threat that appears to be specifically targeting YouTubers. Quick rundown of what happened and why we're here before really diving in. A number of days ago, I received a malicious copyright violation notice from a company called Legis Music. This document was sent through the Adobe document signing portal and contained a zip file loaded with a malicious payload, as well as a certified valid GTA 5 executable. To be clear, Legis Music was being impersonated and has been incredibly helpful to me throughout this entire process. They are not in the wrong. I just want to be crystal clear on that front. Their image has been damaged by this in a way that is entirely unfair to them, and they should not be judged for these events. Basically, I got a file from someone pretending to be a music rights company that contained pretty hefty malware. Wanting to know more, I gave the file to a few of my newfound colleagues, I'll refer to them as, who are well versed in the topic of malware analysis, and as a result I began to learn a great deal about what this software is, how it runs, and what will happen to creators who get targeted by it. That has been, to say the very least, an eye-opening experience, where the incredibly dangerous reality of our online lives has been opened up for me to see in ways I didn't really ever expect. As a result, I decided to make a video. The malware that was sent to me is an APT-level threat. This malware contains anti-tamper protocols that will detect and prevent itself from running inside a virtual machine to prevent reverse engineering, among other things. It will actually self-destruct, if I'm informed correctly, if it believes that someone has become aware of its presence and is looking to make changes. Bottom line, as was admitted by the prominent security figures I talked to at Rockstar and Take Interactive, this is a sophisticated piece of malware that can have far-reaching and deeply negative consequences or results for creators who fall prey to it. Still, why the need for a follow-up video? Simply put, a lot has happened from then till now. Most importantly, directly after the video was initially published, a representative for Take Interactive, the owners of Rockstar Games, who are the developers behind GTA 5, which was the executable contained in the malware folder I was sent, reached out to me directly. This led to a group call between myself, my primary source, another individual who I think might have been, no offense to him here, just the read that we got, might have been an undercover lawyer, but have no proof of that, and a senior security engineer at Rockstar Games. Why did that call happen with such urgency, shall we say? I don't know. Rockstar has had a really rough go of it lately from a cybersecurity perspective. GTA 6, the source code got hacked, I think, where there seems to be an impending delay on the game as a result of that, maybe, etc., etc. It's been harsh for them lately. And I was talking about advanced threats that seem to include a signed copy of GTA 5 in the zip folder with the malware. I had called it APT-level malware. I had speculated that it might be connected to the More Eggs family, which is a group of malware programs that contain similar code and objectives. And I had even gone so far as to draw connections between More Eggs and initial APT-level users and architects of the code, such as Fin6. Those connections, which weren't even the main point of the video at all, the main point was to just warn YouTubers, are most likely what began to alarm Rockstar and Take because they came flying in after an offhanded mention of GTA 5 simply being included in the folder with its own valid certificates, which was true, with what felt more like a quasi-legalese intimidation tactic than an actual consultation, leaving me with a sincere desire to say two separate things. First, I have absolutely no interest in a legal battle with Rockstar Games. That's not what this was about. That was never the goal. I merely stated, accurately, that a copy of GTA 5 with valid certificates was included in the malware folder I was sent, though it had actually been obfuscated to not look like a copy of the game by changing the extension from an executable to temp, and that this could be, I don't know, for a number of different reasons. Second thing, the security representative from Rockstar Games, as well as the representative from Take-Two, or whoever the other person was, if it was a lawyer or an actual security executive, whatever it may be, these two people made it abundantly clear that they want me to say the following, or at least something similar to the following. Rockstar Games has zero exposure from this. GTA 5 is not associated with the malware. It was included for an unknown reason. I could speculate on the purpose of that inclusion, but I will deliberately abstain from doing so right now. And that valid certificates are there, however, those certificates are part of a completely unrelated file that is not a portion of the malware itself. It is merely contained in the same folder, which is kind of what I originally said anyway, but yeah. That's about all I can say on that. GTA 5 and malware are not words that Rockstar Games or Take-Two would like to see in the same sentence ever, and we're very keen to make that known to me and quite clear. That being said, I'm in the business of thorough reporting, and I wouldn't make this follow-up video unless there was a valid reason, so let's really get started, and people might laugh about this and make jokes in the comment section, after the sponsor. Alright, changing topics here for a minute, this video is brought to you by Skillshare. Skillshare is a massive online learning community that is built for the benefit of all of its users. One thing I always put right at the beginning, every single ad, even though sometimes I know it's tiring, is that Skillshare has no advertisements, right? I'm doing an ad, but they don't have ads, and thus all of their classes are able to be viewed without interruption. In a cluttered online world of aggressive ad serving and just a whole bunch of annoyances from that, it's a pretty big positive, and I really respect them for it. One of the classes I gained the most value from so far is called Great Graphic Design with an emphasis on typography by Sophia Yeshi. I'm certainly not new to the concept of graphic design itself, but specifically typography is clearly an integral part of YouTube thumbnails where I could be doing a much better job, making this valuable to someone like me who heavily utilizes the platform. Skillshare, of course, is receptive to all brackets of skill, whether amateur or professional. There will always be value in it because it allows people with real experience to communicate that experience in a helpful way to their peers. When you join, you can try out a Skillshare live class, which adds a completely new different layer to the online traditional learning experience, and the first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link down below in the description will get a 1-month completely free trial of Skillshare so you can start exploring right now today. Again, the link down below will give the first 1,000 users a 1-month free trial so they can explore the site right now. Big thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring the channel. Here's the rundown. During our meeting, Rockstar claimed to have stripped the malware, a process where you remove unnecessary items, usually a whole bunch of zeros, at least in this case, from the binary in order to get a better understanding of what you're dealing with, inside a hardware lab, as they called it, which is just a fancy way of saying a separate physical computer with its own internet connection. Technically, anyone with an outdated laptop and a separate IP has a hardware lab, but whatever. Which then allowed them to determine that this was apparently not the More Eggs malware family. This was actually a program called Redline Stealer. Now, that is plausible, but I do want to also highlight a few additional items right now that strike me as, at the very least, interesting. Even if this malware is a Redline Stealer variant, which does track, by the way, as we can see here inside the AnyRun platform database, it still holds remarkable similarity in both coding and function when compared to More Eggs. Example, payload files dropped are done through lolbins, which is the same exact process used by More Eggs affiliated malware. Lolbins, for anyone who is unaware, is an abbreviated term for living off the land binaries. Living off the land binaries are binaries of a non-malicious nature, local to the operating system that have been utilized and exploited by cybercriminals and crime groups to camouflage their malicious activity. A lot of this stuff is going to go over some people's heads. I totally understand. It actually goes over my head, or used to, in a lot of different ways, but I'm learning. I'm getting there. I'm being coached by people far smarter than I am in this particular field. And yeah, I wanted to be as thorough as possible and describe all of it. As another example, the command line for PowerShell that is used in multiple known variations of More Eggs and Redline, as well as the sample that was used against me, are identical. This by itself is not definitive, but it indicates at the very least that More Eggs and Redline, these two malware families that are separate but not so separate, have an incestuous connection where bits of the malware can be directly copied, or in this case has been directly copied or replicated, somewhere along the way from creation to delivery. This, once again, speaks to the severity of a burgeoning industry called Malware as a Service, or MAAS, where APT-level software can be sold and licensed downward to a host of individual actors, who then target and destroy whoever they want, in this case, I guess, YouTubers, with, and these are my own words here, which may sound hyperbolic to some people, but I'll stand by them, I really will, weapons-grade malware. For complete context, especially with regards to anyone who wishes to know more, I've linked a video down below that dissects the Redline Stealer with extremely in-depth information. It's too much to include here, but linking resources is something I will try to do more and more of as I grow the channel. Redline Stealer seems to often include alternate legitimate executables. As per the public database of entries, which is growing substantially every single day as more variations are created and subsequently submitted to it, we can see that many of the Redline submissions contain things like Skype, or TurboTax, or OBS, or Malwarebytes. This corroborates the idea that the original malware sample I received was part of the Redline family, but another interesting thing is that neither the original sample nor the stripped sample that Rockstar gave back to us could be submitted to AnyRun, which is very, very confusing to me. Why is it that Redline Stealer is a mainstream malware family with thousands of submissions, and more by the day, all the time, but this one just can't be analyzed? Regardless, if it is Redline, it is intended to steal Chrome, Thunderbird, Internet Explorer, and WinSCP passwords. These passwords, primarily in Chrome, are not safe at all, and everyone should be aware that by saving your login credentials in the Chrome browser, you are effectively asking for your entire life to be upended by one single infected download. As a preventative measure, I cannot stress the importance of a password manager enough. I was given this advice by a multitude of people, and I'm trying to do right by them and recommend not a specific vendor for password managers, but the general concept of getting one or looking into one as a baseline and extremely helpful security measure that excels far beyond the defenses that Chrome can ever provide by itself. Take that for what you will, but I wanted to make sure and say it. Here's what's important. If this malware sample is of the Redline family, it is still APT level malware. It is a self-destructing, anti-tamper, VM detecting piece of software that has been sent through a purpose-built and self-deleting delivery system of Adobe documents directly to YouTubers, a lot of them simultaneously, making it, regardless of whether or not Rockstar wishes to downplay the severity here, a horrifying threat to the YouTuber ecosystem that needs to be understood by as many creators as possible and avoided. With that in mind, for anyone that this applies to or might apply to ever in the future, here is how you check specifically if your system is infected. First, hit the Windows key and then the R key simultaneously. I'll give everyone a second to do it now if you're watching and want to do so when you're on a desktop. This will open a prompt in which you will type %temp% as shown on screen, which will then, after clicking OK, open your temp folder. In that folder, you will search for IXP and look for these files right here. If you find these or something similar to these, like very similar, your system is or probably is infected. Good news, if that is the case, even though it might sound horrifying, antivirus options are currently indexing this particular strain of malware because we have submitted it to the standard database options, and also Rockstar, as a company, has apparently submitted it with a pro version of Joe Sandbox as well, which means commercialized antivirus is right now, hopefully at least, and probably, aware of this and working to combat the new strain. We can actually see that the number of hits so far in terms of security options properly detecting the threat and therefore eliminating it has climbed from 10 to 17 in a very short span and is still rising. Now for some personal speculation that is backed up with expert source opinions, but again, personal speculation. GTA 5 is possibly included here, with a valid executable, to try and prevent the malware from being uploaded to places like VirusTotal, Hybrid Analysis, Cuckoo Sandbox, or any.run, based on the file size of the zip. This is not an uncommon tactic with Redline. It's actually not uncommon at all in the world of malware, but understanding these types of things can make it easier to operate safely in the online world and be hyper aware of what you do and do not click online. For example, a file in excess of 650 megabytes cannot be analyzed by VirusTotal. That's just one example. A file that is marginally bigger than that could be padded with the express intention of avoiding antivirus or analysis. To reiterate here, I do not want in any capacity a fight with Rockstar lawyers. Rockstar has zero exposure, to my knowledge, right now as a result of this malware. This entire project, for that matter, was never predicated on the inclusion of GTA 5 or a mention of it in the first place, or the connections between GTA 5 and whatever it is this malware sample is actually using it for. This project focused solely on the danger presented to creators by a novel malware threat that was sent to my personal inbox in order to raise awareness of it. That's it. I do still suspect on a personal level that the malware is part of the More Eggs family, or at the very least heavily modified Redline as opposed to a basic version. Rockstar made it very clear that they want me to say Rockstar has zero exposure and make it obvious that GTA 5 and malware, or Advanced Persistent Threat Groups, APTs, are not affiliated, connected, involved, or even adjacent to each other, and that Rockstar is amazing. GTA 5 is amazing. He even asked me at one point, have you played GTA 5? As if that had anything to do with the topic. So yeah, everything about Rockstar is safe and incredible and amazing, and please don't sue me because your game executable with your certificates ended up in a malware-containing folder that someone tried to hijack my system with. That really isn't my fault, and maybe instead of disrespecting my source, which it kind of felt like they did on the call, you can just focus on doing a better job with GTA's overall security, which the community might appreciate. Bottom line, we are continuing to analyze this, but for right now, we know how to check for infection, we know the current delivery method to be avoided, and we know the seriousness of the threat. In addition, my source, who has now heavily analyzed this malware and made this video possible, by the way, is linked down below in the form of his Twitter account. He is open to contact regarding this particular subject, however you want to do it, or similar analysis and projects going forward. Feel free to contact him if you have relevant work, questions, or you just want to follow someone and you just want to follow their account who is well informed in the world of cybersecurity and adjacent fields. Big thank you to him for helping protect YouTubers from emerging threats. If you want to support the channel, please consider using the links down below, in addition to checking out my source and supporting him. As I delve further and further into this field, I'm also highly open to feedback and suggestions. That's more important than ever for this channel. You can find multiple avenues of contacting me in the description. Also, Patreon and locals, of course, monthly subscriptions. The video sponsor, big thank you to Skillshare, shout out, social media, etc., but I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching. I don't want to have a fight with Rockstar at all, and have a nice night.